I mistake my grandmother's voice for the sound of morning, soft, thin, liquid, like her hands. Fertile, Iroquois, Hopi, Cherokee, red hands that wrestle, capture, swallow, hold light hostage inside her belly. Teaching daughters, granddaughters how to weave water into baskets. It is best to gather thunder on your knees. Apprentice to wind and river, forging centuries of breath into wet Carolina clay.
This is our family burial ground that goes all the way back to the 1800s. My grandmother, my grandfather, great-grandparents. So all of this land is family. My daughter Imani died in 2009 at the age of 38. This place is very special to me because I've been coming here communing with my grandmother for years and ancestors, and I never thought that I would have a child here before me. But she's here with people who loved her before she was even born. As a writer, it's important to me to have this space. And as a people, it's so important to have a resting space that you can go to for your relatives, that you can access them, you know. But Imani talks to us a lot. And I have a line in one of my poems, but the line is, you don't have to behave in your grave. And so she liked that. Okay, sweet girl. Love you much.
I am so fortunate that Jaki Shelton Green agreed to be the Poet Laureate in North Carolina. She has become a national and international figure with her amazing talents. She certainly has a mastery of them. And
my cell phone rings. This is Roy Cooper calling for Jaki Shelton Green. And I said, really? As in like my governor, Roy Cooper? And I'm just being really sarcastic. And he says, yeah, this is your governor. We have appointed you as the next Poet Laureate of North Carolina. And I screamed. I felt all the ancestors in the room, you know, who were saying, good work, daughter, well done.
She would love that. She's a Duke fan. I'm a Carolina fan. Yeah, see?
North Carolina people are special. We really are homegrown, like the good tomatoes that we all crave. I love every little crook and cranny of North Carolina, and to experience that geography, those foodways, those cultures, the red clay. I grew up in this red clay of Orange County. I have vessels that my ancestors have made from the riverbanks. I come out of a community of remembering during the harvest of gardens in the summer. It didn't matter what color you were. I remember white men that would show up and say to my uncle, well, Irvin, none of your lima beans came up this season. Well, I bought you a bushel, you know? Or my uncle would say, so-and-so's corn didn't come in. They didn't get it good. And he would take them a bushel of corn. No one went without food. There was no such thing as homelessness. Those lines were erased in the name of survival. People took care of people. There are things that we can learn about survival in this season of uncertainty, from that way of being present in the natural world and being present as stewards of that natural world and being present as stewards of each other. I try and keep these things alive inside of my poetry.
Lean deep inside the elbows of this river where blood is born. Sing a litany into the open book of your story, my story. This river shrugs its belly, births kindness for all things yet to be born. From your wet palms, this river, wounded heart, holding the lost secrets of ancestral crones, kneeling, feeding the doorways of all your my drowned seasons. Oh, how I want to.
I believe that's the way of poetry. It finds the times that it's needed. This is that time again. Is a time of truth-telling.
An eclipse of wind, more and more, an eclipse.
Why is telling the truth so hard? Ms. Shelton Green brought up the idea of the selfie, right? So much of the images that we see on social media aren't actually our true selves or aren't other people's true selves. When we tell the truth, it opens us up, right? And sometimes for whatever reason, we feel that we need to be guarded. And obviously no one willingly enters into a sad place. But when you step into truth-telling, sometimes you do take up that process.
This space was used as a market square. You had both free and enslaved people here during the antebellum period selling wares. Unfortunately, some people were sold here. Some African people were sold here as well. And then of course in 2020, this place was primarily where the George Floyd related demonstrations occurred. So this place has a very powerful energy. There's a lot of tragedy, but there's also a lot of triumph.
I'm very drawn to history, archives, historical documents. I have a copy of my great-grandfather's bill of sales. He was purchased for $700 as an enslaved person. A lot of my poems are centered inside of these larger stories, these much larger contexts. Growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, going to an integrated school for the first time in the 9th grade, all of these historical and personal events inform the writing. And that's what's been very meaningful for me when I think about, and when I can illustrate to young people and to other writers, asking them, what are those documents, what are those photographs that you have questions about? I've seen the healing aspects of poetry when I'm working with people, poets who are living in homeless shelters, poets who are on death row, when I'm working with young trans people. Just the everyday person. We all need it. The everydayness, the ordinariness of art is what we should be trying to establish instead of always having art over here. Like you have to go to a museum to see great art. Well, not necessarily. There's great art in all of our communities. And how are we defining art?
I'm glad you're here. God bless you all, okay?
You know, for me growing up as a child, art was Sunday morning seeing the most amazing flamboyant hats at church. That's art. We are human museums, and we're carrying a lot of art that, if we're fortunate enough, we are able to share with other people. I love being the Poet Laureate, but my passion for writing is to write. And I don't even like to use the word teach, but to facilitate creative moments and safe spaces where people can go inside and find their own creativity. So I do this workshop that's pretty much entitled Creating Our Human Museums. We have our private and public cells. Just like in a museum, there are exhibits that have been archived, or there are exhibits that might be off limits. And I do this workshop thinking about what's inside of your human museum that you might be keeping that might be blocking or inhibiting your creativity. What are the rooms that need cleaning? What's your room of joy? Do you have a space for the ancestors? Do you have a space for yourself? The biology of objects really inform the work that I do. Asking people, what do you keep? What's keeping you?
Typical Ecuadorian foods, which is where I'm from. So trying to keep the culture, my culture alive through cooking.
My overall mission is to be an ambassador of the literary arts. So yes, I do a lot of doing poetry readings and doing a Q&A. But I also do some very substantive work where I'm in residence in a community for a week. I wanted this work to be my working with community organizations, my working in school systems, to help people uncover their own stories.
I think she's going to give you a lot of insight. I would like to introduce North Carolina Poet Laureate Jaki Shelton Green.
Sometimes when a library closes, when certain people die or institutions die, it's like an entire forest dies with it. So we have to be very, very vigilant, again, about what a place, what a community intentionally decides to save.
Going in for an hour working with a group of students is not the same as being with them for a week. It takes a day just for the trust to build. Writing is very personal. You're asking people to share things they may not share even with their families. I feel so honored that people entrust their voices, their poetry with me. It's like in any relationship. You've got to build it. A lot of trust, respect, mutual tolerance, all the things. Poetry requires the same. Sylva, North Carolina, invited me to come to City Lights bookstore, working with a high school group. So they said, well, we have two options for you, to work with the gifted kids, or would you be willing to work with a group of alternative students? And I said, I'll take the alternative students. I'm in the conference room waiting on the kids to get there. And these 12 tall, mountain, white guys walk into the room. And I thought, I wonder how this is gonna go. For the next 2 hours, I was fighting tears. The camaraderie, the mutual respect we had for each other was just beautiful. And they were good writers. The teacher was out in the hallway crying. She said, my heart is just so full. She said, I've never seen them respond like this to anybody. I asked them, why did they act out? They said, because nobody sees us. Nobody hears us. They all came from pretty bad family situations, and they shared some of that with me. One kid held up a backpack that was like this huge backpack. And he zipped it up and he said, I want to show you something. And he pulled out a stack of journals, like 12 journals. And he said, these are my journals. He said, this is what keeps me alive. When we tell each other our stories, we find ourselves inside of each other's stories over and over again. So I told him my story of being kicked out of public schools in Orange County in the early 60s at the advent of desegregation, for participating in a walkout. And they were like, you got kicked out of school. I was like, yeah, man. I said, just like you, I was not seen. I was invisible by racism. Principal called me a little while later. He said, these students came back different. He said, I swear they were standing up straighter. When we risk not always being around people who think like us, look like us, right? That when we risk stepping outside of our comfort zones, we find a lot of magic there. And we find new adventures and new lessons that are just sitting there waiting for us. Creativity heals. Creativity is good medicine. We all have talents. And if we want those talents to have a legacy, then we have to give them away. So that's why I created this initiative to have a teen poet laureate in every high school. Teenagers are hungry. For many of them, writing is like their link to a sane world that they are trying to create for themselves in the middle of so much chaos that's coming at them.
Poetry enriches every single part of our lives because it makes us look inward and then makes us also look outward at the same time. And what better gift, what better skill to be able to look at things from a different perspective.
I am delighted and bursting with pride today as we introduce and experience the creativity of our inaugural student laureates.
The best part about working with Jaki is that she makes you a more caring, more thoughtful person. I've learned from Jaki that you can be tough, you can be soft, you can be concerned about the state of the world and concerned about the state of your own community all at the same time. In terms of the Poet Laureateship, she has rewritten the purpose of it, and to include the young people as the core of that mission that she has is something that will reverberate for generations to come. The Poet Laureate program is creating changers, people who can change their world, and that's exciting to me.
It's allowed me to get my work published on multiple different occasions, and it actually allowed me to start teaching and mentoring other students. Just gave me a platform, if you would, to start publicly speaking, to start putting myself out there and give good back into the community. And this whole program is all about developing yourself as a person, and Miss Jaki definitely played a big role in that. She allowed us to be who we are. You know, a lot of people are confined to what they call social norms, which she allowed us, a lot of us, to break free from that, and allowed us to give others the initiative to break free from that, which is just something really powerful that nobody can take from you.
Where chains of society no longer bound me, where I could fly between the stars that I love so deeply, and when my wings could no longer soar, a grip so soft carried me the rest of the way.
She's an absolute inspiration. I hope to be one day like her. When I first got into poetry, I did not know that I'd be right here today. I did not know that I'd visit the governor's mansion. It's an absolute blessing to be here.
I am the embrace Elena gives her father when he speaks of her, the old recipes that her grandmother gives her, the house that was left behind for her daughter. I am the words of the bullies that speak badly of my name, for I am the spirit, memory, and image of her past, for I am Elena.
It's 100 counties in North Carolina. I'll be doing this for a long time, far past my laureateship days. It doesn't matter that you live in a small town without a stoplight. It's doing the work. There's nothing special about Jaki Shelton Green. Absolutely not. It's about hard work, falling in love with something that you know how to love. How do I plant that seed over and over again, where young people start planting their own seeds with each other?